He doesn't carry a gun. He doesn't wear a bulletproof vest. He walks into battle dressed in fabric sewn by elders, laced with sacred herbs, wearing lion teeth around his waist and red-black beads around his neck. Yet, entire terrorist cells freeze at the mere whisper of his name. They call him Gaddafi. Not because he commands with violence, but because his presence bends the will of men and war alike. Some say he's a soldier. Others say he's a spirit born of the Sahel, a guardian sent by the ancestors to protect the land when no one else could. In the brutal fight against terrorism in Burkina Faso, where chaos bleeds into daily life and safety is measured in seconds, one man steps beyond the reach of modern war. His story isn't written in military manuals or battlefield reports. It's told in whispers across villages, among fighters, and in the stunned silence of those who've seen him act. He walks where others don't dare. Bullets miss him. Landmines reveal themselves to his touch. He doesn't speak unless needed. He doesn't fight for medals. He fights for something else entirely, something older than war and deeper than fear. His name has no rank. His path has no title. But his legend grows like wildfire in the dry wind of the Sahel. And now, we tell his story. The story of a man who walks like a shadow but strikes like thunder. A warrior without a weapon. A protector without armor. A myth made flesh. This is the beginning of the tale of Gaddafi, the sacred warrior whose strength comes not from machines, but from the invisible power of the land, the ancestors, and a vow made in silence. Stay with us. Because what you're about to witness is not just the recounting of battles, it's the unveiling of a force that war itself cannot understand. It was one of those days when the air felt heavy with history, when the sun rose not just to mark a new day, but to witness something greater. Captain Ibrahim Traoré, in his bold strategy to reclaim the soul of Burkina Faso, opened the gates to the people. He called for volunteers, sons of the land willing to defend it, not just with weapons, but with heart. The VDP, Volunteers for the Defense of the Homeland, was born from this call. Men of all sizes and stories gathered. Some brought rifles passed down from fathers. Others came in patched uniforms, faces carved with the determination to protect their village. Among them, one figure stood out, not because he shouted, not because he pushed forward, but because he stood still. He wore no military colors. His clothes were traditional, flowing, and hand-sewn from ancient fabric. Around his neck hung charms, symbols not of war, but of spirit. His eyes burned, not with anger, but with focus. A fire that did not scream, but insisted. When a skeptical officer asked, "Where is your gun?" he simply replied, "My weapon is inside me. Just give me permission to go to the front." Silence followed. Whispers rose. Some laughed nervously. Others scoffed. Captain Traoré himself hesitated. He had seen many brave men fall even with guns in hand and armor on their backs. And here stood a man with neither. But Gaddafi did not beg. He didn't try to convince. He stood like a rooted tree, calm in a storm of doubt. "I don't ask for your trust," he said. "I ask for the chance to earn it." And that, more than any speech or salute, moved something in the room. Reluctantly, they let him in. Not with celebration. Not with applause. But with wary eyes and low expectations. He was placed among the recruits, not at the front, not in command. Just another name on a list. But even then, even before a single bullet was fired, something felt different. The way he walked. The way others stepped back without knowing why. The way the wind seemed to shift direction as he passed. He was in. The man with no weapon. The man with no armor. The man called Gaddafi. And though no one said it out loud, they all felt it, something had changed. The sun was merciless that day. Heat shimmered off the earth like a warning, and the air was thick with the scent of dust, sweat, and something unspoken, fear. The newly assembled VDP unit had barely finished settling into a remote outpost when the chaos erupted. A surprise ambush. Gunfire cracked through the silence like lightning tearing the sky. Screams followed. Dust rose. Terrorists, heavily armed, came fast and hard, using the dry bushes and narrow trails to close in from every direction. The VDPs scrambled. Some froze. Others shouted commands. Captain Traoré's forces tried to regroup, but the enemy had the advantage. It was panic, pure and real. Then, he appeared. From the rear of the formation, walking, not running, came Gaddafi. No gun. No helmet. Not even a knife. Just his robes, his charms, and an eerie calm. "Get back," someone yelled. "What are you doing?" But he didn't stop. He walked straight toward the incoming threat as if the bullets didn't exist, as if he were guided by something no one else could see. At 15 meters away from the enemy, the impossible happened. The gunfire paused. The terrorists didn't shoot. Didn't speak. Didn't move. It was as if something had tied their hands, closed their throats. They stared at him, bewildered, as though their eyes couldn't process what they saw. Gaddafi bent down slowly and picked up a small, plain stone from the ground. He closed his fist around it, whispered something in a language older than any known map. The wind picked up. Birds scattered from trees. The battlefield held its breath. Then, he threw. The stone flew not like a rock but like a bullet fired from the will of a god. In one blink, it struck. One head. Then another. Then a third. 3 terrorists fell. Not staggered. Not wounded. Fell, lifeless. Silence followed. Even the insects seemed to go quiet. The VDPs stared, mouths open, fingers frozen on their triggers. It wasn't just what he did. It was how he did it. Effortless. Silent. As if he had just brushed dust off his shoulder. From that moment on, no one questioned him. No one asked again where his weapon was. No one doubted that he belonged not just among them, but possibly beyond them. He walked back to the group without a word. One soldier, still breathing hard, whispered, "Did you see that?" Another replied, "That wasn't a man. That was something else." The legend had begun. And in the eyes of every witness that day, the war had just changed. Because now, they had Gaddafi. Days after the stone incident, the unit was deployed into one of the most dangerous regions near the border, an area known for hidden landmines, improvised explosive devices, and ambushes that had claimed dozens of lives in recent months. Locals called it the place where metal screams. A mixed patrol of soldiers and VDPs was ordered to scout the area and secure a path for a future convoy. It was a tense mission. Even experienced troops stepped lightly. Every crunch of gravel felt like it could be their last. Gaddafi, as always, said nothing. But when the time came to move, he stepped forward, not in the middle, not in the rear, but at the very front. No one gave him the order. He simply walked. Eyes closed. Yes, closed. At first, the others thought it was a mistake. Was he praying? Was he in shock? But he walked with certainty, feet placing themselves in perfect rhythm, like he was following markings only he could see. The men behind him hesitated. How could someone guide a patrol through a minefield, blind? Then came the miracle. Every few steps, Gaddafi would stop. He'd kneel down, press his palm to the earth, stay completely still, as if listening to something deep below. Then he would quietly point to a patch of ground. Each time, soldiers dug. And each time, without fail, they found a mine. Every single time. The soldiers began to exchange glances, not of doubt anymore, but of awe. Some whispered prayers under their breath. Others just followed in silence. At one point, an officer approached him, rifle in hand, offering it respectfully. "In case something happens," he said. Gaddafi took the weapon gently, examined it with calm eyes, then leaned it softly against a nearby tree. "This is not my path," he said. He wasn't rejecting the rifle out of arrogance, it was conviction. His strength came not from bullets, but from something older. Something that couldn't be reloaded or jammed. And so, he continued. With eyes closed. One with the ground. By the time the patrol was over a dozen explosive devices had been detected and disarmed. No lives lost. No shots fired. Only the quiet guidance of a man who could feel the earth breathe. The patrol had barely returned from the minefield when another mission came down. An urgent call to secure a corridor near a set of dry riverbeds where terrorist groups were reportedly regrouping. Intelligence warned of a possible ambush. The kind that doesn't give you a second chance. The team moved out, this time with heightened awareness. They were seasoned now. And they had Gaddafi at the front, eyes open this time, but distant, as if watching something in another world. The wind changed. The air grew still. Then, suddenly, Gaddafi stopped mid-step. No one else saw anything. No sound. No movement. Just dry earth and wind-blown grass. "They're here," he said. The soldiers tightened grips on their rifles. "Where?" He didn't answer. Instead, he raised his hand, whispered something low and slow in that strange ancient tongue. Words that felt like they belonged to the soil itself. The kind of language that makes birds scatter, that makes your skin go cold even in the heat. Then it happened. Before anyone else saw them, 5 terrorists hiding in the dirt. Camouflaged so perfectly they looked like shadows of rocks, suddenly began to stir, but not by choice. Their hands twitched. Their eyes widened. They tried to move, but couldn't. They were frozen. Not paralyzed from fear, but locked by some unseen force. As if the earth itself refused to let them rise. The soldiers aimed. Fingers on triggers. But nothing fired. The rifles jammed. All of them. No bullets. No sound. Just stunned silence and an eerie stillness that crept into every man's bones. "Don't shoot," Gaddafi said calmly. He pointed to a nearby bush. "There are more waiting. If they hear a gunshot, they'll attack." Instead, the soldiers, guided by Gaddafi, crept forward. Tied the immobilized fighters with ropes. Loaded them onto carts. Not a single shot fired. Not a drop of blood spilled. For the first time in this brutal war, a full enemy cell was captured alive, silently. Gaddafi didn't celebrate. He simply turned and continued walking, sensing more danger ahead. The others followed, not as comrades, but as believers. It was no longer about fighting harder. It was about fighting wiser. And Gaddafi was showing them the way. The forest was thick with shadows. No moon, no stars. Just a suffocating dark that made even the bravest soldiers grip their weapons tighter. It was the kind of night where bad things happened, the kind insurgents used to move, hide, and kill without warning. Rumors had surfaced of a new terrorist camp forming deep in the forest. Captain Traoré knew action was needed, but rushing in blindly would be suicide. Then Gaddafi stepped forward. "I will go," he said. "Not alone," the captain replied instinctively. "I must." There was a moment of stillness between them. Captain Traoré, a man of steel, stared into the eyes of a warrior who feared nothing. "Two men will follow," the captain said. "But they stay back. They do not speak. They do not interfere." Gaddafi nodded once. The plan was set. That night, 3 figures entered the forest, 2 armed and 1 unarmed. Only Gaddafi disappeared into the dark. The witnesses stood far behind, hearts racing, unsure what they were meant to see. But that's just it, they saw nothing. No movement. No sounds. No flash of weapons. Hours passed. And then, as dawn broke, a quiet wind swept through the trees. The 2 soldiers moved forward, and what they found defied belief. Dozens of enemy bodies lay scattered across the forest floor. Not mutilated. Not bloodied. Just still. Peaceful. As if they had simply stopped. No bullet wounds. No blade cuts. Just silence. The 2 witnesses recorded what they saw. When the footage was shown to Captain Traoré later that day, the room went cold. The captain watched it all in silence. When it ended, he didn't ask for explanation. He simply rose, walked over to Gaddafi, and placed a firm hand on his shoulder. "From now on," he said, "you stay close to me. Where I go, you go. Where I stand, you stand guard." And just like that, the legend was no longer whispered. It was spoken out loud, by the commander of the nation's resistance. From that moment, Gaddafi became more than a myth. He became a shadow that guarded the light. After the night in the forest, something had shifted. Captain Traoré summoned Gaddafi to his tent, not for orders, not for praise, but for truth. When Gaddafi entered, the room felt heavier. Not with fear, but with presence. Even the seasoned officers instinctively stood taller, as if an elder had walked in. The captain motioned for everyone to leave. He wanted this conversation alone. "Where do you come from?" he asked, his voice steady but sincere. "Who are you really?" Gaddafi didn't answer right away. Then, softly, he spoke. "I was born here. But I am not only of this time." He paused, then added, "I am the result of an ancient pact. My grandfather trained me in the old ways. Not with guns or drills, but with silence, with earth, with the voices of those who came before." Captain Traoré narrowed his eyes. "So you're not a soldier?" "I was not trained in modern war," Gaddafi said. "But I was prepared to protect the land." The captain asked one final question: "Why do you walk without fear?" Gaddafi looked at him and said, "Because I do not act in the day. The day belongs to men. But at night, the spirit moves. And that is when I walk." The captain sat back in his chair, as if absorbing the weight of those words. He saw now what others only guessed. Gaddafi was not part of his army. He was part of something older, something deeper. A force not recruited, but revealed. In the crowded markets of Ouagadougou, in the whispering grasslands of northern Mali, along the dusty roads of Niamey, and even in the fishing villages near Abidjan, one name returns again and again like the rhythm of a drum echoing through time. Gaddafi. Not the politician. not the warlord, but our Gaddafi. The man who walks alone, unarmed, yet brings peace where armies have failed. Ask an elder in a village once surrounded by militants, and you'll see his eyes light up. He'll lean forward and say in a voice soaked with reverence, "He came like wind." There was no sound, but in the morning, the guns were gone. My granddaughter still plays where the rebels used to hide. In the Sahel, where so many have grown used to sorrow, where fear has taken root deeper than the crops, Gaddafi has become more than a man, he is a symbol. A reminder that protection doesn't always wear camouflage. That some warriors defend without firing a single shot. In the words of a mother from Burkina Faso, "I don't know where he came from, but I know my son came home because of him. And when we hear he is near, we sleep a little better." That is enough. Young men, who once looked to violence for a future, now speak of something else. They talk about honor, discipline, silence. They talk about moving like Gaddafi, with purpose, not anger. For many, he represents a new way to be strong, not by controlling others, but by protecting them. A teacher in Côte d'Ivoire, who lost 3 students to militia violence, described watching footage of Gaddafi walking through flames without harm. "I cried," she said. "Not because of the miracle, but because I realized our continent still produces men who walk for others, not for themselves." His legend is not fueled by social media posts or political speeches. It spreads in small stories, in the awe of soldiers who saw mines unearthed by bare hands, in the sighs of villagers who lived through the night because he passed through. In mosques and churches, some whisper prayers not to him, but for him. "May his path stay clear," an imam once said. Because his path makes ours safe. There are children named after him now, Gaddafi used as a first name in places where hope was once too fragile to speak out loud. Not in honor of fear, but in celebration of courage guided by spirit, not revenge. And yet, for all this praise, there is something else, a shared understanding among the people of Africa. Gaddafi doesn't belong to one tribe, one country, or one flag. He belongs to us all. He is not a hero made by politics. He is the answer of the ancestors. A protector carved from centuries of resistance, of pain, of hope reborn again and again in the hearts of ordinary people. Some even say he is the spirit of Africa itself, embodied for a time, walking the earth to remind us that justice without violence, strength without cruelty, and power without ego are still possible. A griot in Senegal once sang, "He walks like thunder, but strikes like rain." He does not speak often, but when he does, the earth listens. He does not carry fire, but enemies burn in his silence. For those far from the war zones, he may seem like a myth. But to the displaced, the orphaned, the hungry, the haunted, he is proof that not all hope is lost. In a world that too often teaches African children that safety comes only from outside, from drones and deals, Gaddafi stands as a counter-narrative, one that says we can protect ourselves, with wisdom, with spirit, with unity. This is why his story matters. Not just for what he has done, but for what he represents, a future where dignity does not require a gun, where silence is not weakness, and where Africa's greatest strength lies in its people, its ancient knowledge, its spiritual power, and its refusal to surrender. As one old man in Niger put it, "When Gaddafi passes, even the wind stops to watch." Because he reminds us, Africa has not forgotten who she is.